one of the things is that if our quarterback goes down, there is somebody who is up next. If a wide receiver goes down, there is somebody who is up next. If there is a tailback that goes down, there is somebody who is up next, right? And so that's how elite teams continue to be elite, and how if someone goes down, they can still make it to championships. Right now we're in the middle of March, so March Madness. So if you're a basketball fan, so with that, same thing, like they can still make it to the Final Four and lose a whole player because they have somebody who's up next. Welcome to CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. I'm your host, Brandy Mabra. It's time to show up as a confident leader to create a practice and life you love. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. It is Brandy Mabra here, and this week we're going to talk about retreat recap. So I am so blessed because I get to work with amazing private practice owners, and what I have always said, the elite of private practice owners. So inside of Private Practice CEO, my signature program, if you do not know, which you should, but inside of my signature program, every quarter we meet and we get our amazing community together in person. And more times than not, I'm always like, is this too much? And every single time we get together, I'm always like, no, we could meet more and it would be amazing. So this past retreat, we actually got together in Scottsdale, Arizona, which was fabulous. We were in this amazing luxury villa, like mountains around us, and it was just very nurturing, and it felt like we were just in this lush getaway. So perfect setting for the work that we were going to do. And one of the things that was confirmation for me is we had a client who said, I was ready for this retreat. I needed to get away. If she's listening to this, then she probably knows who I am talking about. But it was confirmation because every quarter, why we continue to do this is every quarter you need like a reset more times than not. When you're building a practice, when you're growing a practice, when you're scaling a practice, it takes a lot of work and a lot of energy. I know I don't need to tell you that. You're in it every single day. And the mindset shifts are super important. The community is super important. The intentionality is super important. Having good strategy, strong leaders is super important. And so that's why we meet every single quarter. And if you are in a place where you haven't taken some time off or you haven't gone out of the office, then as you're listening to this retreat recap, then I'm going to encourage you to be able to do that because it's just game changing too. And then even with our clients, they travel because I work with a global community at this point in time. And so we do travel. We travel nationally here in the States, and then we also travel internationally as well. So it's just really fun. So I thought that this episode would be dedicated to a recap. Also, I know that our clients listen to this podcast. So hello, my private practice CEOs. And it's nice for me to be able to use this just to reinforce some of the things that they're learning when we're together. So we had, for this retreat, what was different is we actually allowed for our clients to bring their leaders. So in the room, it wasn't just our CEOs, it was also the people that they're in the trenches with, who are their leadership teams or part of their leadership teams. And it was important for me, not only for our clients to get a great transformation, but also the leaders that they brought into the room to get a great transformation. So we set the tone with thinking like a CEO. And it's powerful, so powerful, when you can have a leadership team think like a CEO for a couple different reasons, right? When we're building businesses, it's very easy for us as CEOs to get into the weeds of things, very common. It's also common once you get to a place of actually having a leadership team for your leadership team to get into the weeds as well, which can actually slow down the practice. Your leader, whether if it's a clinical director, a medical director, a nurse manager, what else is there? An executive director, an office manager, a practice manager, an administrator, a COO, a CFO, a CMO, like all the leaders. I'm trying to think of all the leaders that could possibly be in an office, especially from a healthcare perspective. But you know what I'm talking about. When you have a leadership team, you want them to be able to execute, right? So you're there as the CEO to have the vision. Your team needs to be able to execute. So if they're in the weeds or if they become a bottleneck, then silently the momentum of the practice will stop and they will be the problem, right? So if your vision isn't clear, if you don't have the clarity that you need as you're moving the practice forward, or you're not able to explain what the vision is, then you slow down the practice. When your leadership team is there to help you execute and they don't understand, or they're not able to because they're getting put into fires or they become the firefighter, they will slow down the growth of the practice. So it's important for you to understand, a lot of times people, when they hire leaders, they think, oh, I'm done. I have somebody who is going to take on all this stress. I have somebody who's going to filter all these questions. I have somebody who is just going to do the work and I can go off into the sunset. And that is not how it works, my friend. No, like, you are still needed, because at the end of the day, this practice is yours. The vision is super important, and they need you to be able to tell them where to move and to be that GPS for where to go. So once they have that, then they need to be able to execute. It allows for you to take more time off, of course. It allows for you to be able to have your practice run without you, which is important. But also, you have to pay attention from a leadership perspective. The exact same thing that happens to you as a leader can also happen to them. So in the room, we had leaders and our clients, and the whole topic was around thinking like a CEO. So our clients always need the loving reminders to think like a CEO, to own their CEO status. And I purposefully wanted their leaders to think like them for a couple different reasons. It allows for them to call them out, right? For when also, what was really great about having them in the room, they were like, oh, why are you working on that? And so it allowed for them to see some of the conversations that we have on a day-to-day basis, but also it was purposefully designed for everyone to recognize where they were maybe the bottleneck, what were some things that were on their plate that they needed to delegate, thinking about the team that they have collectively. And so with our clients, there were still some things that were on their plate with the leader, that they started to say, like, wait a minute, I can do that. Wait a minute, why do you have that? Wait a minute, give me that. Hold on, you shouldn't be working on that. Why are you working on that? And then even after, like, some of the follow-up meetings, since being back, it was really interesting just to see some of the additional conversations that were happening between our clients and their leaders. So there's a whole episode that I have dedicated that is deep in the vault, I would say. But we'll go ahead and put it in the show notes, where it's all about getting your team to think like a CEO. So this whole retreat was dedicated to that. The other really great thing that came up was the topic of who's up next. When you think about you as a CEO, you should be thinking and hiring with intention. We've talked about this. We're hiring your team members with intention. So if you are in the streets of recruiting, then you need to think about, why are you recruiting this person and what could be next for this person. When you're hiring with intention is powerful. And it's also powerful when you think about who's up next. So this topic was truly about thinking, if I am no longer here, right, then who is going to be up next? From a leadership perspective, this is powerful because the leaders that were in the room got to think like, oh, well, if I get promoted, who's going to replace me, right? And so there's natural things that happen in a day-to-day in a practice. Sometimes people leave, because they quit. Sometimes you have to fire somebody. Sometimes people go out on maternity leave. Sometimes people take vacations. Sometimes people have unexpected things happen and they have to do like FMLA or family medical leave, or just medical leaves for themselves. So you just never know. So when you think about who's up next, then it allows for you, again, to hire with intentionality, but also as you're training, mentoring, coaching, and setting expectations for your team, it also allows for you to be able to think about who's up next and who would potentially replace a position, which brings us to org charts. So inside of the retreat, we talked about org charts. If you don't have an org chart or a organizational chart, so every business, and people have love-hate relationships with org charts because they can have the hierarchy of a business or the title of a leader versus I'm a worker bee, or I'm not part of leadership, like all those kind of things that can make people feel some kind of way when it comes to a org chart or the way that one is framed, but really it comes down to like top down leadership. No. At the end of the day, what a true org chart is there to do is there for you to have organization to your business. So it is there for you to have structure, to have the team members, especially when you get a lot of them. Where do they play within the business, and what is their purpose? What is their role, and what are they supposed to do? There is the current org chart that anybody has, and then there's the future of what an org chart can look like. And so when you think about the people within your business, who's up next would be if they're a provider, something happens to that provider, who's up next, right? And so I love the analogy and what I had talked about in the retreat of sports teams, right? Because anytime that you have a basketball team or a football team, I'm a graduate of the Ohio State University, and we football, right? And so one of the things is that if our quarterback goes down, there is somebody who is up next. If a wide receiver goes down, there is somebody who is up next. If there is a tailback that goes down, there is somebody who is up next, right? And so that's how elite teams continue to be elite, and how if someone goes down, they can still make it to championships. Right now we're in the middle of March, so March Madness. So if you're a basketball fan, so with that, same thing, like they can still make it to the Final Four and lose a whole player because they have somebody who's up next. So when you think about these things, it's important for you to make sure that you're prepared for just the natural ebbs and flows of business. Team members are great. They're amazing, especially when they're high performers. But sometimes high performers move on. Sometimes things happen. And the power that you have as a CEO is you can prepare for that. So you prepare for that through cross-training. You prepare for that by not keeping everything in your brain. You prepare for that by having SOPs. You prepare for that by having policy and procedures. You prepare for that by having a good onboarding. You prepare for that to have continuous coaching and mentoring and training within your business. And it allows for you to have a business that can be fluid, especially in today's times, and a business that is truly sustainable, and a business that will be here today and tomorrow, right? In years to come. So that was a lot of the higher level points of what we talked about. So we talked about org chart, we talked about who's up next, we talked about thinking like a CEO, and then also everybody, which is the magic of truly being in the room, which you can listen to this podcast all day long. But at the end of the day, there's something different when you are in person, and there's something different when you have access to people who are just doing amazing things in the space too. So, as a reminder, with Private Practice CEO, there are amazing, again, the elite of private practice owners. I cannot say that enough. And I feel so blessed to be able to work with each one of them. But they also have built something that is truly amazing. And most times people don't even have the tenacity to be able to build it. So these are multi-6-figure practice owners. These are 7-figure practice owners, multi-7-figure practice owners. Even in private advisory, I work with 8-figure practice owners. And then my experience goes all the way up to 9 figures. So at the end of the day, when you put all of that together in a room, it is truly, truly, truly powerful. So powerful. And then also part of the retreat, we were able to do our first ever Private Practice CEO Recognition Awards. And so we gave awards to 2 of our amazing clients for vision and also for legacy and motion. So when you're building a practice that truly is just going to outlast you, or going to be life-changing for not only the owner, but the teams that are working inside of it, and then also for the community, that's saying something, right? And so it's like I said, building a practice is hard. Yeah, it's hard. It is hard. So where we're at right now is we are getting ready to wrap up Q1. I cannot believe it. There are 4 quarters in a year, and we are getting ready to be at the end of the first one, which means that you have 3 quarters left. So part of what we're doing is just, even inside of Private Practice CEO, is getting folks clear with reconciliation, celebration, recalibration, all the things of Q1. And so one of the things that I just did was I met with our clients' leadership team members on a call, and we went through the exercise of wins and gaps. And so wins are what is working well inside of the business. And so for Q1, what were some of the wins, which they identified? And then what were some of the gaps, or what isn't working, or where's the opportunity for Q1? And it was really, really insightful. So even going back to thinking like a CEO, it's fun when especially as folks are developing as leaders, where they start to think about things from a higher level, right? And so when we're thinking about your leadership team being in the weeds of things, one particular person talked about, wait a minute, the phone calls that are coming through that the admin is taking isn't appropriate. And we have meetings and all the things, but the marketing team wasn't part of some of the conversations, and the marketing team needed to hear some of this feedback from other team members. So an opportunity was, well, let's go ahead and have everybody meet. Let's have like an all team meeting, which includes admin and marketing and so when you actually stop and think strategically, or you allow for yourself and your leadership team specifically to look at things from a higher level, to think about the business holistically, especially if you have like an operations person or a clinical person who are your leaders. Sometimes they don't necessarily think about how one operation or one process and system can actually affect the operations or a process and system clinically, right? And so it's important for all the team to be together. And so when we think about even just the different areas of a business, marketing, clinical, admin, billing, all of the areas, then you need everybody, right? Because what one department does, or what one person does, or one area does, can absolutely impact another piece of the practice or another piece of the business, and it can mess everything up. Right? And it could easily be, oh, I didn't know. I had no idea. I thought that it was only going to impact this area, this department, or this one person. And it's a domino effect too. So it was really fun just to see just some additional insights that came and all the things. So again, when we think about your team collectively thinking like a CEO, specifically for your leadership team, then it's important for you to allow for them to do that, and for you to challenge them to think like a CEO too. So I'm super excited for our next retreat. Our next retreat is actually going to be happening in London. And so we are going to be able to have what I'm calling our Bridgerton moment, and we're going to be doing really fun things in Mayfair. So literally Mayfair is the place of London. So it's where if just using Bridgerton terms, where the tongue gets together and all the things. So I'm super excited about it. So we'll be there in June. So if you were feeling like, you know what, I want to be in the room. You know what, I need a really good org chart. You know what, I need a strong leadership team. Then I would love for you to come to London, but you have to be inside Private Practice CEO in order to do it. So if you are in a place where you need help inside of your practice, if you've gotten to a place where your team is frustrating you, if you are in a place where you are just too deep in the weeds, or maybe your leadership team is too deep in the weeds, then go ahead and apply for Private Practice CEO. So if you join now, we'll be able to make a lot of progress between the time and we leave for London in June. So go ahead, see the show notes or see whatever notes, and go ahead and apply today. Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the episode and it empowers you as the CEO of your practice. If you enjoyed the podcast, please make sure you subscribe, share the message, and leave a review. If you want more information and support in growing and scaling your practice, click the link in the show notes to take advantage of our free resources or apply to work with me directly. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.